Director of IT and Facility Management at NCCU School of Law. Today, I'd like to introduce you to some of our faculty partners. That's what we call them. Jim Beckwith, who's standing, he's our senior faculty member. April Dawson, Kim Cotdale, and I have a couple of people on my team that's here. Brian Schreiner, who's our educational technologist, and Stars Best, who's in charge of our scheduling and management of our facilities and special events. We have one partner who's on his way. He is such a good partner, he decided to fly in yesterday, just what it is, and he'll be here in a few minutes, and then he'll fly back out. So that shows dedication. The format for today is that I'll speak for about 5 to 10 minutes, talking about our environment, and then each one of the faculty partners will get up and talk to you all. They will talk about 3 things. One would be why they start using technology. The second would be what technology they're using. And the third would be how has partnering with IT benefited them. So first, let's talk about our environment. When I first started at NCCU in 1998, my first call was to Ken Hurst at Duke University. And Ken has been a great friend and partner over the years, and he kind of gave me some tips as to what I should avoid. One of the things when I first started, our technology environment was lacking. I don't want to go into grave details, but this was one of the pictures of I guess best classroom. And as you can see, it's kind of dated, I guess, in the early 80s, with the projection booth in the back. You see here. There's a television here and chalkboard, and we had those terrazzo floors, and we had surface-mounted electricity. The success that we've had at the law school has been primarily because of the associate dean who allowed for us to spend a lot of our Title III money for technology, and then more so with the faculty. The faculty became more like partners to us from the start. We tested concepts and new technology all the time. In fact, our first jump into the 21st century was this room here, in 203, which is high-tech classroom, smart board. We have 4 types of rooms in the law school. One that has this design where the plasma screen is to your right or left, and you write on the plasma screen, and it's projected to the screen in front. In every room you have cable, DVD, VCR, all the stuff that everybody else has. And we have microphones at every other seat for recording and for teleconferencing. We used that room first as a test to see if the faculty really would like these type of rooms. And it just took off like a hit. So then we started designing other rooms. 2005, we did a complete renovation of the law school in addition to the building, and we added some seminar rooms. This is a seminar room that we added that has the smart board red projection screen, which is here, where you just write on the screen in the room. And then our latest addition was this past February. We noticed 5 weeks before finals, we opened up the building. 24 hours for students to go into the classrooms and study. So we noticed that the students were using the technology in the classroom to prepare for exams. So we created some breakout rooms or some group study rooms. And these group study rooms are kind of cool. In the group study rooms, there are small custom tables that seat between 4 and 6 people. There's a VGA adapter cut into the table, so students can pull out an adapter to connect their laptops, and we have a 42-inch LCD screen at the end of the table where they can share information. They can just hit a button, and they can pull their information up to the screen. As well as there's a symposium in that room, which allows for them to use the smart board. So, and that's kind of it. We pride ourselves on our faculty involvement in technology, and as you see over the years, our percentages. '99, you see how we were kind of low about faculty using technology. But when you go up to 2009, you'll see the numbers have gotten substantially higher. We have 97% of our faculty using technology in the classroom. We have Twin, we adopted in 1998 because we didn't have the resources to do bulletin boards. So we started using Twin, and now we're at 100% of our faculty using Twin. PowerPoint is still hovering around 70 to 75%. The clickers is something that we tried but have not had much success. Right, Brian? We tried that, but we only got a 15% penetration on clickers, which is not, we're not doing so well on that. And then the capturing solution, which we tried a year and a half ago, we've got an excellent solution, thanks to Brian. We have 85% of our faculty using the capturing solution. Our approach to technology is pretty straightforward. We want to provide a seamless integration of technology throughout the law school. We want to continue to raise the bar expectation of technologies available. We want to continue to maintain and expand our IT department to provide good quality services to the faculty and the community, and we want to provide a user-friendly environment that empowers the end users to maximize the use of technology. Those were my 4 goals in 1998, and they stay the same today. Key to the partnership is that we're solution-driven. I'm more of a business person than a technologist, so I'm more interested in the numbers and the solution that it provides. We tend to want to value our partnership. We could not do what the professors do in the classroom from a technology standpoint. So we're really there to support them and to aid them. We value our partnership, and everybody on my staff is approachable by the faculty, and everybody tends to think that my staff is pretty friendly and reliable and dedicated. We also try to minimize the tech jargon to the faculty, because I tell my team all the time, no one cares. So all they're interested in the results, and if you can continue to give them the results, they'll continue to praise you. So with that being said, I'll turn it over now to Jim. Let me tell you a quick story about Jim. When I first started, well, before I started at NCCU, Jim was on my interviewing team, and he was at the table, and he said, I'm one of the senior faculty members, and I've been using WordPerfect 5.1 as the best WordPerfect software. It's the best word processing software ever, and at the time it was. And I don't think you're planning on changing this if you get the position, do you? And I said no. And I didn't change Jim's WordPerfect 5.1. I didn't change it. Jim changed it. So over the years, he's changed it, and Jim has been our biggest advocate for technology. He can tell you more about what we do than I can. And what happened this past fall, we were celebrating Jim's 25th, 30th year at the law school. And in his paper, and some of it you'll read on, he talks about the partnership with IT. He called us as his partners in IT. So that's how it kind of just coined this presentation. Okay, Jim?
Thank you very much. We're going to have some fun. I'm a natural ham, and after I get my 7 minutes up, I'll stop. Just tell me to sit down. Can you get that picture up of me again? I want you to see me in the Starship Enterprise, otherwise known as Classroom 202. Back to there. There I am. Are you going to
enlarge it?
Here I am in my playground. This is our crown jewel classroom, 202. And I teach a lot of UCC statutory stuff, so I've thrown a statute up on on the screen, and so I'm always asking questions, and then I'm marking things up in real time as you carry on the discussions. Wonderful thing about a projection system is the student can't avoid the question. I left my UCC in the locker. No, it doesn't matter. Here's the law, let's talk about it. Any discussion, I went to law school at the University of Chicago, so one thing you learn in Hyde Park is always discuss your assumptions. What assumptions do you make? Well, I'm making some assumptions. And I want to, I have a short paper, it's on the web for today's session. You can download it, it's a Word document, and I have a few more copies of the paper if you want one. I want to make clear the antecedent assumption of physical space that animates my discussion, because you have to know where I'm coming from. This is where I'm coming from. This is what I'm used to. So my teaching is taking this into account. Now, a smart classroom, what does it to wonder, I teach all these big courses. I get all the sales and secure transactions, contracts 1 and 2, all that kind of stuff. I hardly ever get a small class unless it's negotiable instruments. But, yeah, what you want me to do? Back to the mic? I have to stand here? We don't have a mic that I can, oh no. You got a mic I can wear? Oh, you wouldn't get me if I gotta stand here. Okay, I'll be good. I'll stand here. As you can see, I tend to walk around in class a lot. Thank you. The antecedent assumptions of physical space. The wonderful thing about a classroom like this is the enhancement regarding visual and auditory capacity for the student. Because, you remember that picture of that horrible old classroom we had in when was it? 98. You had the back row. Any of you law teachers have to deal with the back row? The disengaged people. You wonder, hello, are you here? Can you hear me? And we had the discussion yesterday about the people sitting on the front row. You might have a self-selection that the energetic people are up front, and well, but then some people complain, well, I was late and there were the only seats left. The great thing about this is visual technology. The smart board, wonderful technology. Notice the size of the screen. And notice if the subject of discussion is 2207 of the code, you've got the text up there. And I don't mark it up until the student gives me the answer I want. I'm not lecturing, I am engaging. And so notice the visual equality that comes up. People in the back are less handicapped by their location. Similarly, sound. You can hear me. If I have a wireless mic, and we're going to, based on the discussion yesterday about moving your head, we're going to go to, I expect, the ear mics eventually. But I like to walk around. And when I talk to students, it comes out of the ceiling, everybody hears everything. And we have student mics, and this, I'm just summarizing. You can follow through the paper. It tells you. I'm dealing with some of the practical questions that come up in law teaching by the use of a smart classroom. The microphones. All kinds of practical problems come up. You have the desktop-mounted microphones. They're very well. Students bring laptops. They bring casebooks. They bring all kinds of clutter, and it creates a problem with competing noise. So we're going to go to, what do you call them, the goosenecks? We're going to have mini goosenecks now like this. So all the student mics are going to be changed into this, so all the stuff can be down on the table, and the student can then, I don't have to turn off the student mics because of all the competing noise they generate when they're flat on the board. Practical problems come up. Always bring a battery to class, because you're vulnerable in the sense that your technology, for example, the microphone could go dead. Well, if you've got a battery, and don't put it in your pocket with coins, because the battery starts reacting with the coins, and all of a sudden you're hopping around because you've got this hot battery in your pocket. And it creates a question of relationship with your colleagues. If faculty members are neglectful of not anticipating what follows, you might have a microphone left on. So you come to class, it's dead. Or you have, and as the paper talks a little bit about preparation and transition to class. In a smart classroom, you've got to have the 5 to 10 minutes to get ready. You've got to load software, you have got to pull things up, you've got to make sure the mic is working, and if your colleague goes on and on and on, and 3 minutes before the hour starts, they say, okay, I'm out of here, you can start. Well, no, you can't. You've already lost some teaching time because your transition period has been trespassed upon by a dilatory colleague. So I've been pretty mean to some of my colleagues of saying, get out. Your time's up because I've got to get ready for the next hour. And you have got to be adamant. Now, I don't, if you're a junior and you want tenure and you're up against, you know how to play the game. In terms of the smart classroom, the visuals are terrific. The sound is so helpful. The smart notebook. When you compare that chalkboard you saw on the screen, the smart notebook is so wonderful because it has the sequential pagination and unlimited memory. So you can discuss matters in the first part of the class, then you start lining up a sequence of pages. And if a student says, well, what about such and such regarding the parole evidence rule? And I say, okay, remember, it's a rule of discharge. You go back up to screen 2, you touch it, and it reappears. So you can jump around in the sequence of your discussion. And a blackboard, you think about it, is so horrible because you fill it up. Say you're teaching tax. You fill it up with all these figures. Then what are you going to do? Erase and start over? I mean, the smart notebook is such a terrific function. Now, with your classroom, certain things in partnering with your IT staff, if you are going to change software in the classroom, or you have classrooms, do any of you store files for particular classrooms so professors can go in and retrieve from the desktop their stuff? Well, if you're going to change any of that between semesters, or during a midterm, or for any reason, have a system of notice so that the faculty member doesn't come in, and it happened to me. No offense, guys, but I came into class and my stuff had disappeared. So I had to go to the web and quickly download a Word file of something from the code for the class, and that's because they had upgraded the software and were making a transition to the next semester. So if you are partnering with your faculty, give them notice to things you change if it affects their work-a-day teaching when they come into the classroom. Software, your desktop files. Okay, I won't read. I'm an advocate for open access laptops and wireless in the classroom. I'm not afraid of competition. I'm so good, kids are going to listen to me. I am not afraid of the internet because I'm absolutely convinced that if you're good at what you do, there are a couple of them, they'll do their email no matter what. They think they can multitask. Okay, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Anyway, the point being that we're all competing for the student's attention. And the sort of draconian measure of thou shalt not, I just don't agree with it. And but if you're good at what you do, they will be engaged. And the goal is engagement. It's not simply, technology is not a panacea. It won't make a bad teacher good. You can throw PowerPoint up there and lecture and lecture and lecture and never have any exchange. Well, I mean, it's just a monument to a failed class. Okay, partnering, what do you do if the system crashes? Now, faculty, teaching in a smart classroom, it's like Tiger Woods on the golf course, it's like Roger Federer with a tennis racket. An experienced user of technology makes it seamless, so the students aren't even aware of how it fosters their engagement. You don't want the students to notice you're doing anything unusual. And that's why an amateurish professor who hadn't really practiced or is comfortable with the technology, maybe part of their resistance is they don't want to be embarrassed in front of students because they have this exalted sense of, I'm up here, you're down there, and I'm never going to appear vulnerable in front of you. Or dependent on someone of assumed lesser intellectual standing. The arrogance, let me put it this way, the central problem regarding effective teaching and the use of technology is the faculty. It is their problem, and they need to get over it. Now, by using technology, you run the risk of malfunctions. So, how does a faculty member respond to the crash? Well, you've got to be able to do it the old school way. That is, you have to make an instantaneous cost-benefit analysis. Is it worth the effort to intervene, to fix the problem in terms of the expense to the rhythm of the classroom discussion and engagement with students? I take the view that if the system crashes, usually you simply push the button, screen goes up, you say, it's old school time, and get out your statute books, assuming they've been, now the net might, they could still look at things on their laptops, I suppose, but I wouldn't have the screen. Now probably the microphone would still work. So you can teach effectively without the screens, not as well, but you can still do it effectively. And I think the important thing to do is recognize that usually the solution to a malfunction should come after class. Just revert to old school and remain engaged with the students and then fix it later. Because if you, I have a point in the paper about some smart classrooms have telephones. Well, I mean, what's happened to the classroom rhythm? Oh, okay. Hello, can you, and then, no, you don't do that. You have an engagement with students, and that's your responsibility. So, am I out of time? Okay. Final point, who takes the lead? And I think that, and I want to speak to the IT people, given the incentives in legal culture, away from engagement with students, and away for having respect for you as people, recognizing that the problem is largely with the faculty, you have to do what you do because it's morally right. And because you are on the front line of engagement with students and enabling them to receive the kind of education that we all wish we had. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to use the mic. I'm also a faculty member at North Carolina Central. Unlike Jim, I've only been teaching for 3 years. So as a junior faculty member, I wasn't going to be the one to tell him he was out of time. But Jim has been actually a wonderful mentor in terms of technology. I teach torts, which is a 1L class. I teach some upper level classes, and I have a seminar class as well. And when I first came to the law school, and when you're talking about partnership and just having an environment that was conducive to professors utilizing technology for the benefit of students, we had a workshop where we were going through the classrooms, and actually Jim presented it, and he was explaining to us some of the good tips, coming to class 10 minutes early. That was something I hadn't thought about. I don't normally get to class 10 minutes early, but most times I wish I had. But he has really good advice for those of us who are junior faculty members. Let me get a show of hands of those who are IT professionals. I just want to get a sense of, okay. And how many law professors do we have? Okay, all right. And you all are already on board with this, I guess. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Okay. Well, so what I'm going to do is to talk about what I do in the classroom in terms of using the technology, why I do it from a teaching standpoint, and how we've been able to work with our IT department to help facilitate that. And so most of my comments are really going to be directed towards IT folks. And I think it's important for you all to understand from a professor's perspective why it is that we are using this technology, why we think it's beneficial. Because at some point you're going to have to sell this to your faculty. If they're not on board, you got to bring them on board. So knowing the benefits of using it from a professor's standpoint, I think is really beneficial. Okay, so I am one of those 15% of the faculty that actually does use clickers, and I really like them. So the way I use them is, and the reason that I use them is it keeps the students engaged. So I will have a combination of Socratic type classroom environment, and then I'll throw in clicker questions. So after we've gone over a particular concept, then I'll throw up a clicker question in the form of a multiple choice type question, similar to what they would see on an exam in my class, similar to what they would see on the bar exam. And we get this instant feedback. So not only do the students know whether they understand the information, I can see as a class, as a whole, are they getting it? Do I need to back up a little bit? Do I need to, move on very quickly because everyone has it? So that's been incredibly beneficial. I've done it for the last 2 years in my 1L classes. Last year, 2007, 2008, I taught 2 sections of torts. So I had the evening students and I also had the day students. And I took a survey, and different demographics in the 2 groups. They learn a little differently. The dynamics of the class are a little different. But I did a survey about the clickers, and actually all the students, regardless of whether they were right out of undergrad, regardless of whether they had been out for a couple of years, regardless of whether they were a doctor and going to law school part-time, everyone, really enjoyed the clickers, felt it was very beneficial just in their learning and getting that instant feedback. It's also very helpful when you're thinking about a large class. My torts classes are about 60 students. And, during the course of the Socratic discussion, maybe I'm calling on 4 students. And the rest of the class, they're listening and they're, cringing or whatever. But having the clickers really engages everyone. Everyone knows that they're participating, they enjoy it, they're feeling like they're a part of the class or an entire community. Every time I put up a clicker question and we have the answer, it leads to some discussion about it. Particularly if, the great questions are when you've got a third and a third and a third in terms of the answer choices, because then, you can really figure out where the class is getting it wrong and really kind of fine-tune the students' understanding. The other thing that I've done in class, and I just started this year, doing the video capture. So all of my classes are recorded, and the students have the opportunity to go online and actually look at all of my classes. I encourage them not to just sit down and listen to the whole class again, but as they're going through their notes, as they're going through their study groups, to go to the software and click on that portion of the class if there's some confusion. And we've got some great software, and the students can actually, I use PowerPoint, well, actually Notebook, but presentation software. And the students can actually click on the particular slide, and it takes them to that point in my class discussion. So that's something that I think the students have really benefited from. In terms of the selling point for video capture, I'm just one professor. I've got 60 plus students. And I'm not always available for office hours, not always available when they have a question, they want their questions answered immediately. And while they can access me via email, I tell them I'll try and respond within 24 hours, they can go directly to that class and get the information themselves. And it's really beneficial when you think about having the study groups. So Greg showed you the little study session within our school. So they've got access to the computer, they can go on there, they can pull it up. They can all sit around the table together and say, okay, well, this is what Professor Dawson said, and this is what we were talking about, this is what she's emphasizing. I kind of forecast what's going to be on the exam, so if they hear it over and over again, they're like, okay, that's, she emphasized, she said that 5 times, I think we better, pay particular attention to that. The other thing that I do, or that I've done actually, and this has been a lot of this was kind of just fun anyway. The video conferencing, teaching my class. And this is a good example of where IT has just been wonderful. I had a conference in California in October, and so I had my torts class, and I also had a Supreme Court seminar. And I went to Greg and I said, I'd really like to do this, and talked to Brian, and so we were able to, so we had not done it before. And so Brian kind of went to work to try and figure out what was the best way to do it, what was the most economical way to do it, the easiest way to do it for me, and something that would be, seamless to the extent you can with video conferencing in the class. So we actually used LogMeIn. So while I was in California, I was able to log into the computer in the classroom because I still had my, PowerPoint stuff, and using Skype. So I had my Mac. I had my Mac with me, and I also had the school's PC with me. So I used the PC to do LogMeIn. I used my Mac to do Skype. And so, and Brian had set up a webcam in the classroom, so I was able to see my class. We were able to actually have class. I didn't have to make up my class. And it was, from my perspective, it was just kind of cool to be in California and still kind of engaging with my students. I also did, on that same trip, I did the video conferencing with my small seminar class. That was a class of about 11 students. And the assignment on that particular day was my students were doing arguments. So we're, kind of mocking the Supreme Court, not mocking them, but I think imitating the Supreme Court. And so the students were giving their arguments, and the other students in the class, they were acting as Supreme Court justices. So my role on that particular day was just to observe anyway. So Brian was able to set up the webcam, and the students are giving their presentation. I'm not asking any questions. The other students are. So I'm able to observe in California and write the notes. And then when we got back to class, I was able to actually critique the students. So that worked out really well. One thing about video conferencing, I had not realized or not thought about the fact that I was going to be 3 hours behind in California, so I was up at 5 o'clock getting ready for my 9 o'clock class in North Carolina. Okay, so those are some of the things that I've done in my class in terms of utilizing technology. So what I want to talk about now is how that was facilitated, why I felt so comfortable in this environment trying to use these different types of technologies in my classroom. First and foremost, as a professor, my goal is always to educate my students. So I'm always thinking about, will it help me to better educate my students? Is there some pedagogical goal that's being accomplished using technology? So that's number one. Number two, Greg set the tone from the very beginning. When I first came to Central, and everything that you see in terms of the beautiful classrooms, that's what I was introduced to. So I didn't have the benefit of seeing what it was like before. So when I came in, it was already this supportive, encouraging environment. I actually used to be part of a club, the IT club. I was a programmer before I went to law school many, many, many years ago, so I was kicked out of the club not too long ago. But so I actually love technology, and I really embrace it. So I was definitely an easy sell. However, if it weren't for having an IT department that really recognized that they are there to help facilitate me educating my students, I'm not sure, despite my predisposition of using technology, I would have done it to the extent that I've done it. I think the other thing that comes across very clear with our IT folks is that they are there to serve us, to help facilitate us in serving our students. I see myself as a professor. My customers are my students. If I don't do an adequate job of educating them, then why am I even there? So I think in terms of having this understanding that we are there to serve someone else, that helps with having this kind of encouraging environment. The other thing too that I think Greg and his staff do a very good job of is, and Jim kind of touched upon this, who initiates. The professors, by and large, are not going to initiate, even though they can be very egotistical and just not really on board. I think the onus is on the IT folks to approach the faculty, and you've got to sell this. You all are not always able to do the selling. I mean, you can talk to them about it, but as far as the clickers, what convinced me to use the clickers wasn't because Greg was interested in using them, which he was. I mean, he was already on board well before I was. But it was going to a conference and hearing other law professors who have used them. They were the ones that had the credibility. And so I think one of the things that you all might want to think about as IT professionals is bringing professors in who are utilizing this technology that you want to encourage your faculty to use. Because it's almost like a law professor telling you all, some hardware configuration is the best and the most efficient. They may be right, but they don't have any credibility with you in terms of what you do. But if you all can bring in other people that can show the faculty how it's effective, how it works, I think that'll really kind of help with the partnership. So I'm going to stop there so my other colleagues can have enough time. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Kydell. I'm also a professor at North Carolina Central. I am the other part of the 15% that uses clickers. And so first I wanted to briefly talk about what kind of technology I use. I use technology just because it's natural to me. I like gadgets and, I would just naturally do it. And so when the clicker idea came along, I thought, oh good, this is going to be fun, and let me try to incorporate this into my class. I also teach torts, and so in my large class I use the clickers, and then in my smaller class I actually don't use clickers. They worked out pretty well. There was some upgrade in the software between the first year we started and the second year we started, and I really wanted them to have some more capability because I wanted to be able to take my role with the clickers, and I wanted to integrate the participation points with the attendance. And I'm talking to Brian. His office is right next to my classroom, and so anytime there was any kind of issue, I was like rushing over. Or even better, he monitors the classrooms to see if there are any technology problems. So most of the time, if there was any issue, he was in the classroom before I could even walk out my door to tell him that there was an issue. So he was excellent just in terms of providing support for me as I tried to use the technology. But I would call him and say, can you call the software developers, and tell them that we need the capability to connect the participation with the attendance, and so we had a lot of dialogue back and forth about, is this really the set of clickers that we want to use, because it doesn't have the technology that I really needed to have, even though I am one of a few professors that are using it in the building. But I did feel that my needs needed to be met. Anyway, I used PowerPoint, obviously. I've used video conferencing in a couple of different ways. I have prepared students for career services interviews via a video. So they were doing their interviews, and the person was on the screen as we cut back on some of the funding. Then sometimes firms don't come on campus, and so having that ability to do it that was really good. Also, in terms of video, we have I've been on a search committee where we've interviewed candidates for certain positions via the web as well, and that worked out really well. A first interview, obviously, they were going to eventually come to campus, but just kind of in the initial screening process, we did that. I teach the health and science related classes, so I teach bioethics, I teach scientific evidence, I teach health law, those kinds of things, and so I enjoy using the internet in my classrooms. So when I say this, you'll probably think, how could you possibly, but I use YouTube sometimes. Now, in my scientific evidence class, I am able to do an eyewitness testimony practical example where I pull this YouTube video and I show the class this particular scene and try to get them to describe what happened, just as a practical example of how well would you be able to recall something that you see for a short snippet of time, and how can you use this information? Imagine if you were stressed in this situation, would you remember what you saw? And it's a really good way to get the students to start to think about, what would happen if I was really in this situation, and how much can you trust this particular testimony, which we know that eyewitness testimony is pretty unreliable. So you get a practical example. In bioethics, we talk about stem cell research. Well, instead of me explaining what a stem cell is, NIH has done a really great job of providing a 5-minute video. So, I pull my little video up and I show them the video of what is a stem cell, and it works out so much better. I tried it the other way where I explained it, and I have the tendency to want to really tell them, all the things, and sometimes they say that I'm anticipating that they have knowledge that they don't really have yet. So that has worked out really well. So just having the technology in the classroom to really be able to go right to the web, show this video, show this YouTube clip, 5 minutes out of the class, but the technology is so seamless that I can switch from my PowerPoint to the internet. I can show a video very quickly, and it really doesn't break up the class time. So how do we partner with IT? How do I personally partner with IT? Well, I've given you an example with the clickers already. You know, I'm probably the needy faculty member, so whenever I have a problem, I'm in the office. Like today I was in class and I tried to click on the thing and it didn't work, you know, or whatever. And I've gotten just a host of support from all of the IT staff. One of the things that I think they do a great job of is anticipating the needs of the faculty. Sometimes there are things that we don't even know would help us, and then, you know, somehow the IT staff comes up and says, well, we thought this would be helpful for you. For instance, one of the things that I would have never thought about was the server classroom file. So the classrooms, and Jim mentioned it as well, each one of the classrooms has a file on the server, so you know how I am tied to my flash drive. Everything is on it, right? All of my PowerPoint slides, if I lose it, it's over, right? Okay, but we have this classroom file where you can upload your lecture to the classroom file and then go in the classroom and open it up in the classroom. You don't have to lug your flash drive around. And so, you know, if you left something in the office, or, you know, you weren't sure, did you bring your flash drive with you, you can just go right to the classroom file and pull up whatever it is, or pull up a lecture from a previous day. And so that's really been helpful for me. Even though you can easily bring the flash drive back and forth, you don't have to, because they've created the solution for a problem that we really didn't even have. But it made it even easier after we were using it. So it was great. We use ExamSoft, and students are able to take their exams using their computers, and it's been great. I encourage them, please use your computer. I do not want to read your chicken scratch, but I will if I have to. But I really encourage them to use the laptops. And you know, sometimes you think, well, there may be an issue. What if a student's computer crashes? The IT staff is so good that they have extra computers. So if a student has a problem during an exam, they swap the computers out for them on the spot. You know, so we don't have to worry about, well, is that student losing time because they weren't able to, you know, they had a computer problem, and we told them to have a backup. Even if you're writing, you should always have your paper, you know, so, you know, like you said, you could move over to that. And in all the time that we've been using ExamSoft, they have not lost an exam. And so when students say, well, I'm not sure if I downloaded and I didn't push send, you know, or they feel like they lost the exam or something happened, we can always go back to IT, and they've been able to pull back, you know, a student who dropped it or thought they lost it or whatever, and it was captured with IT, and so they were able to get that to me as a professor. And the last thing I want to mention is distance troubleshooting, and then just troubleshooting in general. I do a lot of traveling for conferences. In fact, I just got back from our study abroad program in Costa Rica, and one of the professors, well, all of the professors in Costa Rica with our program use Skype, and so we were able to communicate with the university via Skype. Anyway, one of the professors at one point thought that his computer had crashed, and since I was the director of the program, he came to me and he said, my computer crashed, I can't get to my PowerPoint, and you know, all this. So we contacted the IT staff, and we said, okay, please help. I don't want to have to give him my laptop, and you know, so they provided a solution for us in Costa Rica from North Carolina Central, which was extremely helpful for me, because I thought, I'm not going to have my computer for the rest of the summer because I'm going to have to give it over to this other professor because his computer crashed. I've been at conferences and other places where I've had computer problems, and I've been able to call back to the school and say, you know, this is going on, and they will sit on the phone with us and walk through, you know, do this, try this, you know, just crazy amounts of time, you know, at some point, just to make sure that we're able to do the things that we need to do. We have an institute, And we've got some technology with our institute, with projectors and laptops and different things like that. So whenever I travel for the institute or for the university, I take my own technology, right? Because you just never know what other people have, right? So usually, because I've gotten so accustomed to what we have at Central, it's always good for me to just take a backup just in case, something doesn't work. We've done some video conferencing with another school. For instance, I was in Texas a couple of years ago, and at the last minute, we were having a seminar, and at the last minute, one of the other professors who was going to go to the seminar and present was not able to go. And so maybe the day before, the day of, the IT staff put it together so that we could have the professor stay at North Carolina Central. I was in Texas, he was at Central, and we conducted the seminar together with the help of IT. So having a staff that's really catering to your needs, I really feel like our IT staff really caters to our needs, and I think it's really helpful. Like I said, I wasn't the person that they had to convince about the technology, but now I just want to tell everybody about it and say how good it is, and I want to challenge them to find better technology and to do even more than what we're doing already. So I'll turn it over to the last person.
Can everyone hear me? I don't really like to use a microphone, but I tend to move around a lot, but I'll try to stay close to the microphone. I am one of the 85% of the professors at North Carolina Central that does not use the clickers. But I plan to, because I've heard some really great things from April and Kim and Greg. One of the things that I think is most important about IT and law professors is, one of the things that you've heard April mention, and I think Kim as well, was just the importance of faculty buy-in. And I think part of that is we have a top-down relationship at Central. I think one of the most important moves that Greg made in his capacity at Central is establishing a relationship with Professor Beckwith. Professor Beckwith is one of our most senior faculty members and one of our most well-respected faculty members. And if he uses technology in his classroom, believe I'm going to use technology in my classroom. Professor Beckwith sits on my committee. And so not only is that important, but that relationship in of itself has enhanced my ability to convey information in the classroom. So without spending too much time about what I do in the classroom, I think that there's another aspect of this that I think is really important to mention. And that is really, what is the definition of an IT staff? What is it that they do? The problem comes in is when we allow law professors to define what IT people do, because sometimes, because generally our knowledge in that area is rather limited, if we define it, then there's a lot of things that will be left out. And so I think one of the things that Greg and Brian do an excellent job of is explaining that we can do a lot of amazing things. If you have a problem, come to me. So I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things that I've had issues with outside of the smart classroom that I've been able to go to my IT staff and find an effective resolution. The first thing was, Kim was talking about the classroom hard drive. Well, I had another problem. I did work on my work laptop. I would save that to my jump drive. Then I would go home and do work on my home laptop, and then maybe my home desktop. So I have 3 or 4 different computers that I'm flipping between, and maybe I can't get into my office one day, so I'm at another computer. So I'm working from all of these different computers. Well, I went to Brian one day and I said, Brian, this is my problem. Do you know if there's something out there that can help me come up with a resolution to this problem? So Brian said, okay, Todd, let me think about this. I think there's something out there. I'm going to go and do some research, and I'm going to come back and speak with you. Well, Brian goes and does some research. Probably about a week later, Brian comes back and says, Todd, there's this program out there called Groove. And I'm like, okay, what's Groove? He said, well, I played around with it. I'm going to upload it on your computer, and this is what Groove does. So I have a Groove folder, not just on like the hard drive at the university, but I'll have a Groove folder on my home desktop, on my laptop, any machine that I use. And anytime I make an adjustment on a document that's saved to my Groove folder, it automatically uploads everywhere. So I really don't even need to carry my jump drive around. I can just make any changes on my desktop, and then it changes in real time. As long as those other computers are connected to the internet, it will make whatever modifications I've made to the document. That has significantly enhanced the way that I can upload and make changes to my notes or my PowerPoints and preparing those PowerPoints for class. The second piece is, even with respect to scholarship, I feel that our IT department has done an exceptional job of making sure that we are aware of the fact that they can provide us assistance. I'm a rather loquacious person. I don't like to type. And so generally when I'm writing, I kind of like talk myself through my work. And so I was telling this to, I think it was either Brian or Greg, and Greg said, you know what, we have this wonderful program out there called Dragon Naturally Speaking. Does anybody use that program? Like, for those of you that don't use it, Dragon is just, to me, is an amazing program. Professor Beckwith was, I thought it was probably about maybe 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I heard Professor Beckwith in his office talking, and there was nobody in there. I got a little scared because I'm in the office with him. And then I was like, what are you doing? He was using the Dragon Naturally Speaking program, and what it is there's a mic, your computer is mic'd, and you just talk into the computer, and then the computer types the text. And I think it has something like a 95 to 98% accuracy, and it's really efficient. So for those of you that, I think it could be a wonderful device, because Greg was telling me that I can have like, let's say a separate device that I can speak into, and then I can connect it to my desktop at work. Like if I'm in the car and I have an idea, I can speak it into the device. If I have Dragon Naturally Speaking, it will convert the material once I connect the device to the desktop. So to me, that is just an absolutely wonderful resource. Part of the reason that I felt comfortable going to our IT staff with these issues is because they cultivated a relationship with the professors at our university that kind of explained technology does not end as far as where you can see. It actually goes beyond that. And I think that has been really important. So anytime that I have a problem, one day I may come to Greg and say, Greg, can IT teach my class? And I don't know.
I'll say no.
Don't say no, but the thing that's amazing is I think that every time that I've gone to our IT department regarding a concern, they have made a significant effort to try to come up with an effective resolution. And the really nice thing about that is they've engaged me in the resolution process. They've come back to me and said, okay, Todd, this is what we found. Will this help? And we've constantly worked together. So I feel like, and I think that's probably the sentiment that you've heard from all of the professors at our law school, is that we work very closely with our IT department. And I think, to be quite honest, some professors more than others, but I think there's definitely a culture in our school where we feel comfortable going to our IT department. Now, the last piece that I'll make is that part of that has a lot to do with Greg's position of customer service. I think Greg, and I sat in on a committee with Greg, and he was talking about his definition of customer service. I know that we're close to time, so I won't spend too much time going into that, but I think that has significantly enhanced the relationship and the closeness between the faculty and the IT department.
One more point, and then we'll open up for questions. One point is that we really respect the faculty space. One of the issues is, from our control room, we can look into any room and monitor what's going on. However, everybody on the faculty does not want us to have that privilege. So what we've done, I had Bryant to create a document that goes, and then he goes to visit every professor at the beginning of the year and get their consent to allow us to view their class and to make suggestions on how to use the technology. Are there any questions? Yes.
I don't know if you mentioned this at the beginning because I came in a little late. Sorry. Are all of your are all of your classrooms set up this way, or do you have a limited number of classrooms?
Well, all of our classrooms now are set up this way. In fact, when we started out with one, and then 2 years later we did another room. Then in 2005, we renovated the entire building and did all of the rooms.
How many rooms is that?
We have 11 rooms.
And who's your vendor?
Contact Systems.
And I would also mention Contact did Duke.
Right.
We learned from that. They did us. And they're going to do Carolina North, the new UNC Law School, if the funding crisis
And I think they're doing a camera too.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the system that you use for video capture?
Video conferencing, we have.
No, the capture.
The capture. Oh, that's cool. That's called Panopto. I'll let Brian speak to that. The system we use is called Panopto. So go ahead.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
What we use for capturing.
Oh, yeah, we are using Panopto software called CourseCast. We've been using it, I threw the big switch last fall. We no longer make any traditional recordings. Everything is done digitally via capture. We're using the CourseCast software, very happy with it. And, yeah, any specific questions on that, I'd be glad to.
Well, one thing, is there any kind of yearly charge or monthly charge or anything, or is it just, is it yours?
That's up to you. Actually, through their Socrates program, the software, recording software itself is free of charge. What we then do is then purchase a service agreement with them. And even at the highest level, I actually provide a document to you folks with their price points. For 2,500 students at their highest level support, I think it's around 8,600 a year. And for, I think 5,000 or 10,000, maybe around 16,000 a year.
An interesting thing about that is that it's software driven. It's not the hardware. We own the hardware. Some of the other vendors, we looked at their solutions, and we had to buy hardware or software, or in some cases both, but we didn't own it. In this case, we own the hardware, and we have the license to use the software.
And also, it's all, excuse me, yeah, it's all in a non-proprietary format.
Right.
So everything's in, say just Windows media files. All the content is yours. Unlimited installations. You can link an unlimited number of recorders together to one lecture. So it's a very powerful tool.
And what we are real heavy on is service after the sale. In fact, with Contact System, we negotiated with them. They're downtown Durham, about 10, 15 minutes from us. We negotiated a 30 minutes response time to our classroom issues. So when we have a situation like what Jim was speaking of, because technology will fail, they're usually there within 30 minutes, and the next class goes on without a hitch. Yes?
With the recording of your classes, part of the problem I'm having selling it to my faculty is if I record it, what motivation do my students have to show up? So how did you get past that when it came time for that selling it for you?
A couple of things. One, we have mandatory attendance, and although the software is, in terms of the grade book and the attendance, it's not quite working. My students don't know that. So I tell them when I have a clicker question, this is how I take attendance. So they know that if they miss a certain number of classes, they are going to fail. So that's one thing. Two, I don't encourage my students to go back and look at the whole class. I tell them it's it should be focused on targeted questions that you may have. So I have not experienced a problem with having a drop in class because it's recorded. It just has not been an issue at all.
I just have trouble convincing my faculty, because that's what I keep hearing from everybody that does that, is they're like, oh, I don't have it, it just is a supplemental tool. But my faculty don't believe me.
A couple of things.
That's why you need to get a law professor in there because they're,
That's what I was going to suggest, that we have you get one of your law. I had to find Jim years ago because when we did this first room, Jim, I don't want to embarrass you, but when we introduced the room, Jim's words were, after we spent $300,000, room show is fancy.
You're down the road from me, so I'm like, just come in. Hey, could you come down?
But when Jim walked into the room and started using it, and we had a one-on-one, about 30 minutes of one-on-one, I didn't have to do anything else. And then he starts selling it to his colleagues. He makes a better pitch of this than I could ever do. The other issue, we have a couple of professors, and one in this room, we're not going to call her name, who does not want anybody to record her for any reason, but she's not by herself. There's some other faculty members who feel like the recording is their personal intellectual property,
Right,
and we respect that. But we also we had a professor who was visiting who did not want students to use laptops in the classroom, and she didn't want the recording either. But as a compromise, she decided that she would allow for us to record all of her classes, and we could upload them for like an hour or two right afterwards for the students to review it. Yes.
So, the recordings of the classes, do you have them in a portal, or are they closed off from the public? Are they just for the students, or do you put it out there on the web?
They're currently they're in a portal. Well, I'll let Brian explain the process.
We keep everything local, we're all housed on the server. We do have a VPN portal that we use if we want to get access for students off campus. Otherwise, they need to be within our wireless or wired network.
Yes.
Tell me about your laptops. You said you're rolling laptops during exams. How many do you have, and how do you, are the laptops clone your image to your environment, or what are the laptops?
That's a good question. What happened is, because we have such a wide usage of technology, we're going through laptops like every 2 to 3 years. So opposed to just trashing the older laptops. ExamSoft is basically, you can use older laptops for the ExamSoft. We only make those laptops available with just ExamSoft on it. So we have about 10 or 12 of those. What we're doing for the first time in the fall is we're doing what's called a laptop initiative. We're making available 200 laptops to students for the fall for the first year intern class, and they can check it out like a library. So they'll check out the laptop at the beginning of the semester. They keep it for the entire year. We had to get this to the faculty and get their buy-in, and some of the issues, and when we were looking at this from a technology standpoint, we were like, oh, this is great, we give everybody a laptop. But we didn't think about the administrative and the other side of it. So talking with the faculty made us put some other provisions into this program. One of them, which is we put LoJack on every laptop. And we also insure every laptop. So in any situation, we will retrieve the laptop or its value. And they'll keep the laptops for the entire time they're in school.
How many students do you have?
We have 619 or 620 students.
That's being debated because some of us think we've gotten too big for that, and we need to cut back on admissions and go back to around 600.
Yes.
What kind of buy-in does your dean have? Are you kind of upwardly feeding him information and he gives you the check, or is he kind of technology driven and say, what about this, what about that? I mean, what kind of communication do you have?
Well, I had the privilege for a while to, because technology was new to law school, and I had consulted to law firms before coming to Central to